I think it was a big mistake for Skid Row to bring out Pantera as the opening band on the Slave to the Grind tour.
Sebastian's cartoon voice was cute in 1990, but it sure as fuck doesn't fit his physical appearance now.
No, I think the Gangs All Here was amazing, and it was the best without Sebastian Bach. I love that album.
When I was 17, if Sebastian Bach would have told me to walk through a brick wall, I would have walked through a brick wall.
So here's where I'm preaching thick skin as well. I thought the Sillinger album was killer.
This girl going, can you just play like 18 in Life or I Remember You or Youth Gone Wild? I'm like, the whole fucking thing's good.
I think Beggar's Day is far better than Get the Fuck Out.
There's so many fucking female fans of this shit, and if they weren't bothered by the lyrics, why the fuck would you be?
Really? Oh, I thought you guys had it this time.
Horns don't belong in metal, all right?
No.
Even Charlie agrees with that.
Man, I'm so disappointed there isn't more albums like their first two.
Excuse me, I gotta scratch my nose. There you go.
The song Rattlesnake Shake on the debut absolutely shits on the Motley Crue Rattlesnake Shake.
We're taking over this town. Look, I came here to do two things: chew bubblegum and talk hair metal. And it looks like I'm almost out of bubblegum. Welcome to the Hair Metal Guru. My name is Anthony. They call me the Guru. And today is part 5 in the 10 Things I Think series. And I got Ryan and Mariah here because today we're going to talk about Skid Row, a band that we've covered many times over the course of the channel. But this will be the first time that we've done this little round table and random topics. So with that, Ryan, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Good topic. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Ryan's at work saving California from the ravages of forest fires. And we also have from California, Mariah, who has become kind of a regular. Mariah, welcome back for your, what is this, your second or third episode?
Third, yeah.
Third episode. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about Skid Row.
Before we get into it, hey, follow me on X at Hair Metal Guru. Check out my Facebook pages at Hair Metal Guru and at Classic Rock Fargo. Like, subscribe, what the hell, ring the bell, whatever you can do to promote the channel. I just appreciate you being here. And Mariah, follow her at, I'm going to see if I can pronounce this right, at M. Temesian.
Hey, you got it.
That how you pronounce your last name?
Yeah.
And then is there a 24 at the end?
There's a 24 at the end, yeah.
So, yes, so follow her on X. And Mariah, is there anything else you want to promote or any socials that you have?
No, that's the one I talk about music on.
Sure. And she's got like 11,000 subscribers or whatever.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't know how that one happened.
Yeah, I know. So I'm just kidding. All right. So with that, let's get into it. 10 things we think about Skid Row. Ryan, why don't you get us started off?
Okay, thank you. So my first one, okay, it's probably a little off here, but I think Can't Stand the Heartache is one of my favorite songs of their career, and I love the direction of this song. Now, don't get me wrong. I love the harder side of Skid Row, and I love that stuff, and that's probably why people embrace them, just like a Guns N' Roses and, you know, the harder stuff at that time. But I love, you know me, I love that big, happy, catchy sound. And when they tried it, and they only really tried it kind of once on this album, and it was this song, and I really love it.
That's probably, I mean, like even in interviews, I think that's the one song that the band kind of disowned.
I know.
And I think I liked it when it came out. When it came out, I loved that whole thing. There wasn't a song that I skipped. But for me, it's probably not one that has aged that well over the course of time. So
yeah, it doesn't scream Skid Row at this point, right. And I don't think it even did then.
Yeah,
but I still love it.
Okay,
I like it a lot. It's not one of my favorites, but you know, it's a good one. Sure. I'm not skipping it if it comes on. I'm happy to hear it.
Sure. Okay. All right, Mariah, what's your number 10?
Yeah. So mine is that I think Sebastian Bach is one of the best singers in that genre. He's just one of my favorites. The band as a whole is just really talented.
Yeah. I'm gonna have something on Sebastian's voice, so I'm gonna hold off on. But I think, I mean, universally, the guy is recognized as being one of the best singers of that genre. And I've said before, man, I mean, when I was 17, if Sebastian Bach would have told me to walk through a brick wall, I would have walked through a brick wall. Like I just idolized that dude. So
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I think, listening to the songs, I'm just like, wow, he's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
I got a little something coming as well, but might I just comment and give you a little insight to what I'm going to say?
Yep.
On album, he sure is good.
Yep. Okay, and I'm going to get into that too. So, and we'll talk about that later. But on album, that dude is phenomenal.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. My number 10. I think it may seem strange now, but of the three major rock bands that released albums in 1991, and I'm talking about Slave to the Grind, the Black Album, and the Use Your Illusions, in the summer of 1991, a lot of people thought that Skid Row would be the album that performed the best. When I look back at all the magazines, the publicity, Skid Row was on the cover of everything. Sebastian was on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine, and you didn't get a lot of heavy metal bands that got that honor. So Slave came out in June of 91. The Black Album came out 2 months later in August, and the Illusions came out in September. Now, in hindsight, Slave was easily the worst performing. It only went double platinum. The Illusions went 7 times platinum. The Black Album has sold 1 million copies since we started this video. But for a period of time, you would have thought Skid Row were going to be just as big as Metallica and Guns N' Roses in the summer of 1991.
Yeah, I mean, that was the first metal album to debut at number one,
Yes.
Quiet Riot got to number one, it was kind of a slow thing with, is it, whatever it was, Come On Feel the Noise, is that what the actual album title was?
No, Metal Health.
Metal Health, okay, that's what it was.
Yep.
I'm like, which of their hits was the, was the title of the album, but yeah, I mean, it hit number one, and, I'm a huge fan of that. I'm a huge fan of the Illusions too. The Black Album is probably my least favorite of the three, and I still love it, so.
Right. Yeah. And I don't, it's not the fault of the album.
No.
I love Slave to the Grind. It just, when you look back, it seems like ridiculous that people thought Skid Row and Metallica and Guns N' Roses were kind of on an even plane for a while, because, obviously history says that, Guns N' Roses are still huge. Metallica is like the biggest rock band ever. And Skid Row is playing, your local bowling alley.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, part of that could just be, guess who doesn't have their lead singer anymore, and the other ones do.
Sure, and I'm sure we're going to get into that more too. So,
yeah, but
okay.
Yeah.
Moving on. Ryan, what's your number 9?
Okay, I got Youth Gone Wild is one of the best hits that a band is really known for that I still really love. And let me explain. You got Modern Day Cowboy, you got Animal by Def Leppard, Still of the Night by Whitesnake, Wait by White Lion, all songs we know so well, but are just so good still that you can't turn them off. And Youth Gone Wild may be up there in the 2 or 3 point of this whole list. So, never stop cranking this one.
Okay.
There.
Yeah, I was just listening. I listened to the debut, Slave to the Grind, and The Gang's All Here today. And I did not listen to Subhuman Race. We might get into that later. But yeah, that's the song that if you were a teenager when that first album came out, you felt like that was your anthem. Like they were speaking for you.
Totally.
And, I just gravitated to that and I still love it. So,
yes.
Okay. All right, Mariah, what's your number 9?
Yeah, let's see. Mine, speaking of The Gang's All Here, I think The Gang's All Here was amazing, and it was the best without Sebastian Bach. I love that album.
I was listening to it today and I really like it. I haven't spent enough time with it, which makes me feel like a bad fan because I'm kind of a Skid Row completist. And I will get into a Sebastian-less album later on in my list. But when I was listening to The Gang's All Here today, I was like, fuck, that thing is solid. So will not disagree. I won't say I'm an expert, but I like what I've heard.
Yeah, the only reason I even listened to it, because I'm like, I don't know, new singer and all that stuff. The only reason I listened to it as early as I did was because some friends and I were like, okay, let's rank our favorite albums of the year. And I'm like, okay, Skid Row's got one. You know, I should probably at least listen to a single. I love Skid Row. And then I listen to the Gangs, I'll hear the single, and I was like, this is really good. All right, I'll try the album. And it ended up being maybe my favorite or the top two albums of 2022. So I ended up, but I didn't want to initially. I wasn't sure about it.
Sure. Ryan?
I like it a lot. It's coming.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Awesome. My number 9. Okay, and this goes to Mariah's number 10. I think that Sebastian gets a lot of credit as a great singer, and on record, he is. But if we're honest, he is hit and miss live. Okay. So here's what I mean. Go watch any concert on YouTube from the glory years of 89 to 91, and you're going to find a lot of missed notes. Now, I don't blame him. That shit is impossible to sing. I mean, I remember reading interviews where they were talking about like Snake was saying, he goes, I wrote it for what I pictured my ultimate singer being. And so I didn't worry about if it was going to be too high or not. There are some impossible notes on those first couple albums. So to be able to go out and tour and play for 150 nights in a year or whatever it was they were doing, and be able to constantly hit those notes, nobody could be expected to do that. But I just want to make the point that if you watch old videos of bands like Warrant and Great White, you'll rarely see Janie Lane or Jack Russell miss notes, and that's just not the case live with Sebastian Bach.
Yeah, dude, I totally agree. I have pretty much the same one coming up as well, but in saying that, you look at that, like, look at Joe Elliott on the Hysteria tour. You look at In the Round in Your Face. It couldn't be more perfect. You know, right. He has some high shit. Like, look at the end of Armageddon it, and he's doing very well. Look at Mark Storace. Look at Brian Johnson, Jeff Keith. And I'm talking about heyday. You know, like, shit, Bon Jovi did the Runaway thing in the heyday. I think Sebastian can do all that stuff in his heyday that he did on album. So maybe it was a little bit of a lifestyle issue.
Sure.
Yeah, probably. It's something to do with it. It's a miracle his voice isn't blown out, though. Like, you think of all those notes, and even trying to do that, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah. Destroy your voice.
I mean, like, I look at, like, Brian Johnson from AC/DC. How the fuck can you growl like that? Because I even attempt to sing one AC/DC song, and I practically need throat surgery afterward. and that dude is still, in his 70s and out there playing. So yeah, I don't know how any of these guys do it, let alone back in the heyday, if you were out, drinking and partying and smoking and shit like Janie Lane was every night. But yeah, anyway, I love Sebastian as on record, and I this isn't one of my things. He's one of the greatest frontmen I've seen of that genre. The dude can command a crowd. I'm just making the point that, you weren't going to see this perfect voice in concert. You were going to have some awkward notes. That's it.
Yes.
So, okay.
Nope, true.
Yep. All right. On to our number 8s. Ryan, what do you got?
Okay. The song Rattlesnake Shake on the debut absolutely shits on the Motley Crue Rattlesnake Shake. So good. I think that the Motley one could have been cool, minus the horns. If you listen to Mick's under riff there, it's hard killer Mick. But Skid's Rattlesnake Shake is fucking killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, Guru hears horns, he's out. A lot of these.
Horns don't belong in metal. All right?
No.
Even Charlie agrees with that.
Agreed.
Here, let's get this in there. It's got to fucking happen. Slow it down. Charlie, you tell him. Horns aren't good. And it seemed like in that period, everybody had, like, Electric Angel's first song was first single was a song called Rattlesnake Kisses. And holy shit, if you have not ever listened to the complete 1990 Electric Angels album, go do so. It is one of my favorite albums of all time. But man, everybody had to have a rattlesnake shake, a rattlesnake kisses all over the place in 1989. I don't know what it is, but I agree with you. Much better than the Motley Crue version.
I do too. I really enjoy the Skid Row one. That'll get stuck in my head all the time. You know, the Motley Crue one's all right.
Yeah. Speaking of Motley Crue, I just ordered the Dr. Feelgood vinyl box. Ooh. It was on sale from Amazon. So I might do a video when I get that up. So okay. That was Ryan. We're on Mariah's number 8.
Yeah. My number 8 is when I listen to Skid Row, I think, I wish Bach would return, but I also respect Rachel and Snake for sticking to their guns. Like, if you don't want to do it, you know, don't let people force you to. I respect them not doing that as well.
I have something that's going to be similar, and I've told people this when I was in Iraq for a year, and luckily I was in a small tent with 2 other guys for a year, and luckily they had become 2 of my best friends. But we were all in a small area, and there were people there that you could not take. You know, maybe they had a bad attitude about being there, and all they did was complain. And I remember thinking, like, there's no amount of money that you could give me to hang out with this person all the time. So, you know, who knows what it was like on a tour bus, you know, especially when rockers are drinking and maybe doing a little bit of extracurricular activities. But, you know, some people are like, well, imagine the money you can make. Hey, money doesn't fucking buy happiness. All right. And I truly believe that. And if you're going to be miserable doing what you do to make a few extra grand a month, I just don't think it's worth it.
Nope. And they decided it wasn't, so I respect them not doing it.
Totally. All right. My number 8. I think 18 in Life deserves more credit for being one of the most original and thought-provoking songs of the genre that also became a hit. I mean, this came out in 89, so by that time you'd already had Faster Pussycat's House of Pain. You had Kix's Don't Close Your Eyes was like an anti-suicide song, and those come to mind. But a song about a kid who comes from an abusive home and ends up blowing his best friend's brains out and going to jail, like, that was just something, that was a topic that not a lot of bands were tackling. And then musically, the thing is so fucking catchy. I just think it's an amazing song, and I think people should talk about it more when they talk about the best songs of hair metal, because I think it's right up there.
And it passed down the generations, because you still got very young people that know and love that song.
Right.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It definitely should. And there are other songs that came after it that kind of similar, but you know, they weren't copying anyone. There's no song that you look and like, oh, that sounds like there isn't, you know, that was a great song.
Absolutely. Okay, we're done with the number 8s. We're on to number 7. Ryan, what do you got?
All right, so here's where I have the songs Here I Am and Making a Mess. And I think they're such an epic duo that run together so well. And if you think about like how we've talked about Quicksand and All My Bridges Are Burning, or like South Gang has Shoot Me Down and Russian Roulette, they trail right into one another. I think these 2 album tracks are perfect, and I love them, and I love how they run together.
Isn't that's the one where it goes, oh yeah, right into the next? Oh yeah. Oh, I just love that part. That yell when that connects the 2 songs, I think that just kicks ass.
Oh yeah, I know. That's probably what really gets me. I love it.
Totally. Okay. Mariah, what's your number 7?
My number 7 is I think Wasted Time is their best song, because part because I think the lyrics are so incredible. The one that always stood out to me for lyric wise is Paranoid delusions, they haunt you. Where's my friend I used to know? He's all alone. He's buried deep within a carcass searching for a soul. That's a great lyric. There's a bunch of great lyrics. it's written about Steven Adler of Guns N' Roses,
Yep.
leaving the band and, getting kicked out of the band because he couldn't quit, his substance abuse. And I think that's such a phenomenal song.
I love that song. That's one of my favorite ballads of all time. The lyrics are phenomenal. And Brian and I have talked, because we've said that we feel like Slave to the Grind was, even though it went double platinum, was a flop compared to what people were expecting it to do. And Wasted Time was a single. It only went to number 88 on Billboard. That should have been a top 10 single.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and none of the songs on that album, geez, I could talk about that for fucking days. Not one of those songs was at least a radio hit. They got some MTV play, but Wasted Time, it's just a tragedy that a song that good performed that poorly on radio.
It is. Maybe, it's not the most radio friendly. People like the catchy choruses and stuff like that, but damn it, it's a great song.
Oh, and the lyrics are, but I think it's catchy as hell. I mean, I
do too.
Love it. So,
yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm with you. Okay. My number 7 is going to be combined with Mariah's number 8, I think. I think I understand why the guys in Skid Row don't want to get back together with Sebastian. The guy just never knows when to shut up or when to stop pushing the boundaries. And I loved that shit when I was a kid. You're like, yeah, Sebastian, stick it to the man. But when you get older, you go, okay, I realize there's a time and a place for things. So look at some of the shit he's done over his career. There was the AIDS kills fags dead shirt.
Oh, yeah.
He threw a bottle and busted up a chick's face when they were opening for Aerosmith. He totally shit all over John Bon Jovi in a 1991 Kerrang article, and I have a picture of it. I'll put it in the video. And then recently, he was practically begging for a Skid Row reunion. He wanted to make things right. And a couple of weeks later, he's ripping the guys live on stage. Then, after the election, he said, "Fuck America. I don't want to live here anymore." I mean, he just doesn't know when to go, you know what? I'm going to keep this shit to myself. Yes, politics is a very, people get heated about that shit. But, if you're a musician, and hey, freedom of speech, yes, you can say whatever you want, but, there's sometimes you got to say, hey, you know what? A lot of my fans believe one thing and don't alienate everybody that's a potential fan.
No.
So he's a great performer, great singer, but he keeps getting in his own way, and I think that's why Skid Row wants nothing to do with him, and I completely get it.
You didn't even get into the personal stuff recently, those weird social media posts when he thought his wife and him were done. Those were weird. And it's like, you need to know when to grow up. That stuff works, maybe when you're in your 20s. Even then, it really doesn't work. But, you're, youth gone wild, whatever. You're however old you are now. You gotta know when to stop. Grow up.
Did you see the post where he took a picture of the scale? He's standing on the scale.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, I'm under 200 pounds for the first time, blah, 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 which is great for him. But he might not have realized, but you can see his butt crack because there's a reflection on the pictures of the scale. And he's obviously naked on the scale, and you can see his butt crack dangling over the camera. And you're like, Sebastian, come on, dude, just some he strikes me as a person who he never stops to think before he goes, hey, you know what? Are there going to be consequences to this? He's just fucking, here we go. And when you were, you're right. When he was 19 or 20 in 1989, you're like, yeah, but eventually we got to grow up, Sebastian.
Yeah, him and Tommy Lee, man, they both could use a little growing up sometimes. Tommy Lee's posting even more insane social media stuff.
Right. Okay. All right, that was done with the number 7s. Ryan, we're on your number 6.
All right, this rolls right from Mariah's. I feel like Wasted Time and Monkey Business are the gems on Slave to the Grind. I love the album. I don't love it nearly as much as the debut, But I think those two songs, especially Monkey Business being the single and the hit, it's still great. And you can't deny the intro guitar and that epic scream. But Wasted Time, I couldn't agree more.
I feel like I didn't write enough about, or I didn't put enough about Slave to the Grind, about the positives in my video. But I love those two songs. I think the song Slave to the Grind, which is damn near a speed metal song, is maybe my favorite rock song off that album. And all three ballads, Wasted Time, Quicksand Jesus, and In a Darker Room, are amazing. So shit. That album.
Yeah. I feel like it's got a song for every mood. You know, you wanna rock and you wanna hear a metal song, you got it. You want a ballad, you got it. You know, you want something in between, that's there too.
And there's punk rock, you know, Riot Act. Fuck, I love Riot Act. Jeez. So yeah, I'm completely with you. Okay. Mariah, what's your number 6?
My number 6, you know, we've talked about Subhuman Race has been talked about, and I was listening to that yesterday at like, I don't know, 1 a.m. or something. I should have been asleep, but I think it has some good songs. I don't think any of the songs on there are bad, but the ones that aren't like the top tier ones, they just needed some work. You know, the bones are there. There's feels like there's so much promise there, but I don't know if it's enough time wasn't spent or they needed to fix things that weren't just the chorus or the vocals. I don't know what it was, but it's a hard album for me to listen to because I'm like, oh my gosh, I love Fire Sign, Eileen, Breaking Down, My Enemy. You know, I like some of the songs on there, and the other ones, I'm just like, yeah, this needed more. But I mean, hey, what do I know? The last person I showed Skid Row to, this was their favorite album. This is like, no, this is their best album. I love it. And I'm like, that's not how it's supposed to go.
I get a lot of comments like when I talk about Skid Row of people who are defending that album. And okay, I love the song Breaking Down. What a great ballad. There's a couple, you know, Into Another, Eileen is okay, Fire Sign's okay. But that album was produced by Bob Rock. Bob Rock produced Dr. Feelgood. He produced the Black Album. And I'm like, what happened on Subhuman Race? I don't get the direction. There's so much about that album that I don't get. I think the band feels the same way. Rachel Bolan just basically has disowned that thing. And I think the other guys are kind of in the same boat. I think Sebastian kind of likes it, but you know, Sebastian's always said that Slave to the Grind is the best album he's ever done. So I didn't get it, but you know, that was 1995, and a lot of bands weren't. You know, look what Motley Crue did on the '94 album. A lot of bands were like, we need to try something new. What we were doing in the past is no longer cool. So fuck it. Let's throw away the playbook and let's do something completely different. And in general, it didn't work.
And like when I had a great comparison to Motley '94, because when I was on with like you and Metal Mike and stuff, I know 1994 Motley Crue is a really good hard rock album. And like I've said before, it's not my hard rock. This is coming from a guy that just preached Can't Stand the Heartache. So you think I'm going to like Subhuman fucking Race? No way. You think I'm going to like the Motley '94 after I love Same Old Situation? Fuck no. Like, it's not my hard rock. When I hear Skid Row self-titled and I hear anything 80s Motley Crue, that's what I want to hear. I'm sorry. Like, there's a fine line of like maturing and maintaining your fan base and maturing and just saying fuck you to the people that made you multi-platinum millionaires. And I feel like they did that a lot. Like, these bands did that a lot. And I just like go, hey, I know it's really good quality hard rock, but it ain't my hard rock and it ain't my Motley Crue and it ain't my Skid Row. So that's where I think a lot of people are coming from. And I'm sorry if I'm like stuck in that genre, taste wise. It's just
like what you like.
That's why I'm here. You know, that's why I'm here doing this. I love this shit and I don't love that shit. So that's why.
And Ryan and I have talked about, like, there there were bands who grew Warrant on Dog Eat Dog.
Yeah.
That, they got tougher, they got grittier, the lyrics got more serious, and it fucking worked and is amazing.
Yeah.
But there were times where it didn't work, and to me, Subhuman Race, that's a prime example.
Yeah, Dog Eat Dog feels like a natural progression to me of just kind of things that they were doing and things they were into. And who knows if, if they had stuck with kind of, their 80s stuff, maybe, maybe people would have come back around to their stuff in the 90s if it was similar and loved it a bit more. And, I like Motley Crue 94. I just kind of treat it like it's a different band, It's got a different singer. It's a good album. It's not Motley Crue to me, but I like it. It's on my playlist and stuff.
Absolutely. Okay, fuck. Who just went? Was that Mariah's number 6?
Subhuman Race things. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah. We get to talking, and then which is good. Then I'm lost. Okay, so we're on my number 6. Okay, I think if you haven't listened to the 2003 Thick Skin album with Johnny Solinger on vocals, you are missing out, because this thing should have been massive. Now, obviously, anything associated with 80s rock in 2003 was going to struggle, but holy shit, this thing is like full of radio-ready hard rock, and it didn't lose. You still hear the old Skid Row, but you do hear a little bit more of a modern influence. I feel like it's the kind of progression like Warrant did on Dog Eat Dog. So check out Ghost, Born a Beggar, Thick as the Skin. And then some people didn't like this. I loved it. They did a punk remake of I Remember You called I Remember You Too. And I love punk, so I love that remake. And then there are 2 great ballads. In fact, I wish I had talked about one of them in our ballads episode. So there's One Light, which is great. And then my favorite is See You Around. One of my favorite Skid Row ballads. Unbelievable. It's a travesty that this thing didn't sell, but I can play that right next to the first 2 Skid Row albums, and I won't be disappointed.
Nice. I totally agree. It's coming for me too.
Okay.
Nope, I've got some about it. This is my next one. So yeah, no, it's good.
All right.
Great album.
All right, perfect. Let's move on. And Ryan, we're on your number 5.
Okay. I got the demo song Forever and the edited out song Get the Fuck Out. Should have been on every album. They shouldn't have been edited out, and it shouldn't have been a demo on Forever. Not just the re-released 40 Seasons deal or the re-release of the self-titled for Forever, and then the unedited versions on Slave. I think Get the Fuck Out is such a killer one. I love that song. It could be my favorite song on that album. But anyway, the song Forever, I don't know if they needed it on that album because they had so many other strong songs. I get that. But I wish it would have come out in some fashion in 89, just because it was so strong.
Yeah, Skid Row is trying to position themselves as a heavier, a dirtier rock band. Yes. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about kind of the irony of how they looked when they first started. Yeah. And Forever was definitely very pop metal. The lyrics were, you could see how they were trying to move in a different direction. It's a great song. I love it. But, I get the feeling they were like, oh, this is a little too poppy to put it on that first Skid Row album.
But see, that one in itself describes Skid Row for me, because just like Can't Stand the Heartache and The Thread, I love Forever and I love Get the Fuck Out. It's like both, poppy and hard ass versions are great. So that's why these first 2 are such great albums for me, because they have a little bit of everything, like Mariah said, for everyone.
Yeah, they do.
Absolutely. All right, Mariah, we're on to your number 5.
Yeah, my number 5 is connected to your last point. And, I hate that they took Thick Skin off of streaming. I had just gotten into the album, when they did it. I was like, this is great. I love this. I was really digging Ghost, all of that. And then like a month later, it's just all grayed out. And I'm like, what? And they took it off streaming, and I hate when they do that because I want to be able to hit shuffle my playlist and listen to anything I want to listen to, and I can't do that. And I hate that.
Yeah, and Johnny Solinger actually died like I think a couple of years ago now, and I think it was alcohol related.
Yeah.
But he was in that band for a long fucking time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He joined in the early 2000s. He was still with them. Like, I think he was in the band like 10, 12 years. He did a couple other albums. Revolutions Per Minute, United World Rebellion. There was 2 like kind of EPs. So
Yeah. He was just as much part of the band, you know. I don't like that we're like, you know, we're getting rid of stuff. And I'm sure it was probably, you know, copyright or whatever, but still.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. All right. We're on my number 5. I think people don't quite understand how rare it was for a band to change as dramatically as Skid Row changed from the debut to Slave to the Grind. Back then, like I still have all these old magazines, but back then bands always talked about when they were getting ready for an upcoming album. They'd say, "Oh, yeah, we really liked our last one, but this next one is going to be so much heavier." They would always say that. And yet, it never really was. You know, if you had a successful album, and I don't blame the bands, you know, Bon Jovi from Slippery to New Jersey, you know, a lot of bands would basically just try to replicate it. And I get it. But Skid Row said, hey, this is going to be a much heavier album. And they were the first band I remember that they delivered, and they delivered emphatically. And it probably hurt them. It probably hurt them. I love Slave to the Grind. A lot of people love it. It's my favorite Skid Row album. But even though we said it debuted at number 1, it really fell off after that. And it got certified double platinum, but it didn't get certified 2 times until 1998. And I think there was a lot of backlash from people who were expecting a bunch of I Remember Yous and Youth Gone Wilds when they bought that thing. So I remember reading an article like probably a year after that was released, after Slave came out. And it was about used CD stores in Fargo, North Dakota. There was all these used CD stores that were popping up. And somebody said in this article, like the number 1 CD that we are getting sold to us is Skid Row's Slave to the Grind. So a lot of people loved it, but I think a lot of people were turned off by how heavy it went, which sucked because, you know, like we love it, but it just didn't click with the majority of the record buying public.
Yeah, people don't like change. People don't even, you know, people on Twitter who are more into the music because they're online talking about it, you know, they don't like change. They want everything to be the same, you know. Everyone, to quote another band, everyone wanted another Appetite for Destruction. That's all they wanted, you know. And so things weren't as big, but people aren't going to stay the same. They're people. They mature and change and grow. So I think, you know, it makes sense, and it sucks that not everyone, you know, loved it as much, I guess.
Ryan, you and I haven't matured though, so I think we're still the same. Fuck that. I'm staying the same as I used to be. All right.
Same as it ever was.
That's right. Okay. We are done with our number 5s. We're on to our number 4. Ryan, get us going.
Okay, so here's where I had Sebastian, for being such a talent on record, sucked a lot live and lots of missed notes. And trust me, when you've been around these studio albums as long as we have been listening to these, you start to look for other stuff. And I tend to look at live shows on YouTube. So I'll look for, you know, Firehouse Live, Warrant Live, Skid Row Live, Slaughter Live. And when I come across the Skid Row stuff, even if it was like a national release or like a, you know, pro shot Wembley Stadium, it's like, and I'm like, bro, you're fucking 20. You're 21. Like, this shouldn't be happening. Like I said, look at Mark Slaughter back then. He was hitting helium notes, and Sebastian couldn't do it. And I'm really shocked because that's how they discovered him. Like on that Mark Wise wedding video we talked about, like you watch that and he's doing notes where you're like, whoa, that is insanity.
Yeah.
But I have to probably chalk it up to lifestyle.
Sure. And you know, playing that many shows on a tour. You know,
Yeah.
I read that once, like he couldn't control himself, so he would blow out his vocals in the first 10 minutes of a show. And then there'd be all these awkward notes the rest of the show because he'd come out of the gates like a fucking race car driver and then he'd, lose his steam. But anyway,
Yeah.
I'm okay. All right. Mariah, you're number 4.
Yeah, so when I listen to Skid Row, you're talking about it. I think Skid Row, A Slave to the Grind, is their best album, and it's among the best '90s albums, which goes along with, to me, a lot of bands from the '80s, released their best albums in the '90s. A lot, Poison, Flesh and Blood is my favorite. Dog Eat Dog by Warrant. There's a number of other ones too, but like, I think that's just part of a trend to me of I like the stuff where they matured, not lost their way and went a little too far off the beaten path, but it's the best album.
I completely agree. And when that was happening, like when grunge was blowing up right away, and I was in college when that was going on, we were still thinking like, okay, yeah, here's these other big bands. But we're still like, well, shit, Skid Row's Slave to the Grind is phenomenal. We were thinking that these bands would coincide. They
should have.
Nirvana would be big, Skid Row would be big. Like had happened in the past. But the change was so dramatic. Like, boom, if you were associated with 80s rock, you were fucked.
Yeah.
Even like, I mean, some bands were going to survive. Bon Jovi was going to survive anything. Okay, Def Leppard. I mean, even Def Leppard, Euphoria, or no, Slang, went gold. So it was just shocking that these bands were just boom done.
Yeah.
And for a period of time, we just thought, hey, yeah, we'll have the Black Crowes. They're kind of your roots rock. We'll have Nirvana. They kind of combine punk and old 70s rock, and you got Skid Row. And pretty soon people were like, no, you can't listen to Skid Row. Or like MTV treated it that way. It was just so weird.
Yeah,
So,
record companies did too. You hear Janie Lane had the story about, going into the record office and then going in again, and everything was so different. And I think they should have. I think that's what all the '80s rockers expected too. You had Axl Rose calling up Kurt Cobain, "Hey, we want you to go on tour with us." Alice in Chains, idolized Guns N' Roses, and they gave them their demo tape, and Motley Crue and some of the bands. And I just, I think that they all thought that they were going to, but combination of either some unrelated self-imploding of the bands or record companies, MTV, like they just wanted to push the newest, greatest thing, which burned out fast. Grunge,
totally.
it's popular like hair metal is too, but it burned out when Kurt Cobain died, 3 years.
Hair metal, I mean, essentially lived for around 10 years. If it started with Too Fast for Love in 81, I mean, I technically think it's more like 83 with Metal Health, Shout at the Devil, Pyromania. So it basically went from 83 or 82 to 92.
Mm-hmm.
But grunge was over and done with in about 4 years.
Yeah, because it was Kurt Cobain, I think, that drove a lot of that. And I think the fact that he didn't like a lot of the '80s bands was also what drove a big part of it, because none of the other guys seemed to really have a problem with it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay.
But hey, now they're both popular, so you can have them both.
Shit, yes. All right, we're on to my number 4. I think it was a big mistake for Skid Row to bring out Pantera as the opening band on the Slave to the Grind tour. I don't have anything against Pantera. I'm not a huge fan. They're a little too heavy for me. But they became massive. But Skid Row was already playing with fire by putting out an album as heavy as Slave to the Grind, and then bring out a thrash band as, I don't know, is Pantera thrash? I've always said thrash. Bringing out a thrash band on your opener. It just didn't help their cause. So this was the first time I saw Skid Row. in Fargo, and there was around 3,000 to 4,000 people at this. It was called the Fargo Civic Auditorium. But I remember hearing after that tour that number one, they lost money. So I don't think, I think they were playing to 4,000 and 5,000 seat venues and not 10,000 seats that you would think for a band that sold 5 million copies of their debut, and the follow-up opened up at number one. So I think they would have been so much better off if they had gotten a band like Love Hate, McQueen Street, Shotgun Messiah, a band that, was heavy, but still fit into the realm of, Skid Row. Because when I saw Pantera, I was like, what the fuck is this? Holy shit. This, because I'd heard of Pantera, but I'd never listened to them before. And I was just like, okay, fine, maybe they're talented, but this is not for me. And if you were somebody who liked more the pop leanings of Skid Row, you were like, what the fuck are you doing? So I just thought it was a mistake.
I always thought the Wild Side would have been the perfect open. God, what a good combo that have been.
Oh, God. Mariah, have you?
I know their album came out. The album timing was a little off.
Yep.
Wild Side was officially a 92 release, but shit, they could have pulled them out.
But Skid Row was tour. They did tour through most of 92.
Right.
Wild Side couldn't have gotten on the end of that.
Yeah.
I think they just wanted to go on the metal side. They Subhuman Race did the same thing. I think they just were like, no, we're a metal band, so we're gonna have metal opener. Yeah, we're metal. It's metal, but I just think, that was a mistake. It would have been. It just wasn't I don't think it was the right fit. The audience, they're not going. I like Pantera, but a lot of them, that's not what they're going to see, and I agree. I agree with that.
And Pantera to me is extreme metal. There's heavier metal bands that would have worked with Skid Row. They didn't need to bring out Danger. That to me doesn't work. But there were heavier rock bands that you would have said, okay, this makes sense. I just didn't think Pantera made sense.
No.
But, it was obviously that was the direction they were going, because that's the direction they went on the next album as well.
Yeah, so it's what they wanted, but I don't think it was the best choice. It's funny to me to think of people who came to hear, like, Can't Stand the Heartache, and I Remember You, and then you got them playing songs from Cowboys from Hell, and you're like, all right, that's all right.
We're taking over this town. Okay. That ends the number 4s. Ryan, what's your number 3?
It's probably my last one of shitting on Sebastian, but whatever. He's been a dick for the last few years. So Sebastian's cartoon voice was cute in 1990, but it sure as fuck doesn't fit his physical appearance now.
No.
His cartoon voice? Yeah. Hey, guys!
Funny.
Doesn't work.
Okay. It doesn't sound like I can't. I was talking about this with someone recently. It was like, we love Skid Row, and then we hear Sebastian talk, and you can no longer take him seriously anymore. Like, it's just that's it.
Doesn't he sound like Beavis and Butthead had Stewart? Like there should have been another guy, and Sebastian should have voiced the other guy. Totally has that kind of voice. Like, dude.
Yeah, it's weird. I hear it on like Hair Nation or something, and I'm like, this is goofy.
Yeah.
Charlie would say hi. What you doing?
Hi, Charlie.
You're so pretty. Yeah, you get to go to Grandma's house tomorrow. Okay. All right, I'm with you. Mariah, you're number 3.
Yeah, so didn't really realize this might be an unpopular opinion, but given something Ryan said, he's not going to agree with it. I think Beggar's Day is far better than Get the Fuck Out. That's the one Skid Row song from the first 2 albums that I'm just like, nope. Nope.
You don't like it? You don't like it?
No, I don't. And I've tried it a couple of times. I'm really glad they did the Beggar's Day version, because with Beggar's Day, I'm like, yep, this album's perfect. Without it, I'm just like, yeah, there'd always be that one, just in the way.
I like Beggar's Day. I love Get the Fuck Out.
Yeah, I know. I figured
me.
it was going to be an unpopular
Yep.
opinion. I like Beggar's Day. That song gets stuck in my head and get the
That's all
fuck
right.
out. I'm like, this is weird. It's kind of a bit of a left turn from everything else on the album, and
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe it's part of the fact that hey, if I play that in the car, I'm gonna have somebody screaming at me or complaining about it. I don't know, but
Well,
yeah, I don't.
it was a good encore. Get the fuck out of the arena. We're done here.
That's right. Hey, that
I'll agree
chick
with that.
that chick that we were talking with on X, I bet she would think there were some problematic lyrics
Oh
on Get
my
the Fuck
gosh,
Out.
yeah, that was ridiculous. I was like, I can't even engage. I'm already pissed off, and I'm just reading this, trying to retroactively correct lyrics and what they should or shouldn't have done, and just be one of those people. I'm like, all right, you're a wet blanket. Move on.
Somehow on X yesterday, Lillian Axe came up in the conversation, and Mariah's like, "Oh, I'm really getting into them. Brian and the Guru have kind of been talking about them, so I've started listening to him. Blah blah blah." And somebody responds with like, "Yeah, I remember that band, but um, their lyrics can be their songs can be what the fuck was the term she used?
Yeah, it's there's a lot of like toxic masculinity
Toxic
undertones in the song.
masculinity in fucking Lillian Axe." And I'm like, well, it was 1988. So, people talked about like sex and stuff.
Well,
I'm like,
here's the
they
deal.
weren't like saying, hey, we're going to force you. They weren't talking about beating people or forcing people. Oh, and I was like, just struggling to just be okay. Here's
Dude,
my
hey, you know
mood.
what? Both the male and female are
Yes,
getting
I
it
said that. I'm like,
when
there's so many fucking female fans of this shit. And if they weren't bothered by the lyrics, why the fuck would you be?
Oh, and they're
well,
not
no,
bothered now. They're not
No.
like doing tell-all stories of, oh my gosh, my experience or I got traumatized. And honestly, Lillian X, man, if you want to attack a band for that,
And
you can go after a different one. That's not even that bad.
yeah, like Lillian Axe is like one of the least toxic, shit. Come on.
no,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
like I said, they were favoring both the male and female because when you're 69 all night, woo, you're both getting it. It's
That's
fine.
right.
Yeah, and
That's
they
right.
had both male and female fans, unlike, some other
Perspective.
bands who didn't have any of that. It was just one thing. Like Rush comes to mind, there's a joke of do they have female fans? Like, I don't really know. And some of the other bands, and it's like, no, they appealed to both of them, and you have those kind of songs. No one's complaining then. No one's really complaining now. I don't understand why
Yeah.
that had been
Like,
brought up.
go listen to some rap music and talk to me then.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
Right?
turn on the radio, turn on the radio. Listen to this awful Latin trap that my roommate loves to play. That drives me up a wall. I'm like, this is actually insulting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, and some of that shit gets like violent too. So,
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
It's how to show a little love.
Yeah. Show a little love. All right. That was Mariah's number 3, right? I
Yeah.
think we're on to me. Okay. I think one of the coolest and strangest memories I have in rock and roll happened after seeing Sebastian solo in Minnesota. This must have been around 98. So the show was great. And me and a few of my friends that drove from Fargo, it's probably 3 hours away to go see the show. We were staying at a hotel right across from the venue. And we're drinking our asses off. Well, I'm out in the hallway, and here comes Bam Bam McConnell, the drummer. Rest in peace. He actually died a few years ago. But he stops by and he chats, and we're like, oh, hey, blah, blah, blah. You were awesome, all this shit. And he has a drink with us. And then for whatever reason, he invited me to stop by his room and to meet Richie Scarlett, who was the guitar player. Now, Richie has played with a bunch of people. He played with Ace Frehley for a bunch of years and has put out a bunch of solo albums. He was a lot older than most of the guys in the band. Anyway, I go with Bam Bam over to the room and I'm chatting with Richie. And then Bam Bam goes off and does anyway, Richie's putting away his shit after the show. And I see a big bottle of Jack Daniels on his pillow. And he goes, hey, I don't have any Coke in here. Would you go to a vending machine and get a couple cans? And then you can, if you want to come have a drink with me. And I'm like, sit and have Jack Daniels and Coke with Richie Scarlett? Yeah, I want to do that. So I go get some Coke. I come back a little bit. He and I are drinking. A little while later, here comes Bam Bam back, and he was fucked up. And he's flirting with this chick. They end up taking a shower together in the hotel, in that room. And Richie Scarlett and I are sitting out and watching the Twilight Zone TV series until like 3:30 in the morning. It was just wild shit. So 1998, I think that was. It was amazing.
Did you get any good stories?
Oh, I mean, we were mainly just we were just kind of sitting. I don't remember what we all talked about. You know, I tried not to be like, oh, tell me all the wild rock and roll stories. We were kind of discussing the Twilight Zone. Because if you remember that TV show, they would have all these weird. So we would like talk about like the show that we were watching. But I was there for like 2 hours. It was fucking wild. So
nice.
Anyway, that was crazy. All right. That ends our number threes. Ryan, get us going with your number two.
So here's where I'm preaching thick skin as well. I thought the Solinger album was killer. I saw them live with him, and it was a really good show. And they were really nice. They came out in the crowd afterwards because it was a club show in San Jose, California. So it was, 500 people tops. But they all came out after and took pictures, and they were signing autographs and very friendly. And Solinger did a great job with every version of the band.
He was great live. He wasn't the performer. He wasn't the showman that Sebastian was. But vocally, he sounded great.
Yeah, totally.
Put Eric Gronwall in a similar category to him, same deal.
And that's going to be coming up on my number two. So
me too.
Okay. All right. So that was Ryan's number two. Mariah, what's your number two?
My number two is that the song Forever deserved better than being shoved on a compilation. I didn't even find that song for Forever because I didn't know it existed. And then I was like, looking through and I'm like, hang on. And then I'm like, this is great. This deserves way better than this. This should have been, I don't know, an album, something like that, rather than being shoved, into nowhere into a compilation. 40 Seasons or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
That the cover of that 40 Seasons best of sucks.
Yeah.
Yep.
Weird.
Remember it's like blue.
Race.
And you're like, what do you
Subhuman
Race. They didn't even use the fucking logo.
No.
The blood logo on Sub. It was like they were trying to abandon their past. And the cover of that 40 Seasons. Oh, I just remember going, what are you doing?
No, it's ugly.
The shit.
What song would you remove from the self-titled and insert Forever?
Oh gosh.
You have to remove one? I mean, there was only 11 songs on that thing, wasn't there?
Yeah, you could put another one. I don't know, maybe Midnight Tornado, that one. That one's probably my least favorite on there.
Last song down.
Can't stand the heartache.
I know, I was waiting for that.
Yeah, Here I Am. I love that one too. Not as much my favorite one. So, but I think they should have just added a 12th song. Who doesn't want more music?
Yeah. Agreed.
I don't want to take anything off.
Okay. Okay, we're on my number two. I think it's just sad that Skid Row cannot get it together and keep a singer for any period of time these days. And I was hopeful with Eric Gronwall. I really like the Gang's All Here. And he could actually sing their shit live and hit everything. The guy's a phenomenal singer. But now he just becomes another guy in a long run of singers who last for a year or so. Excuse me, I got to scratch my nose. There you go. And then he bails. And I know they said it was health problems, but he'd had health problems before. I tend to think that other shit came up. Maybe he wasn't getting paid what he wanted. Maybe he just felt like, maybe that the future wasn't as bright as maybe he thought it was going to be. I don't know. But for whatever reason, he bails. And now they've gone through so many singers over the last few years that it's kind of getting ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I know everyone wants Sebastian to come back, but we already talked about that. I don't see it happening. What I hope is that they can find somebody and get a somewhat stable lineup going. And I think it's got to be somebody younger who can handle those songs, you know? It would be great. Sure, if you could find a name person, maybe somebody who had been in a somewhat established band, that might help a little bit, but it's got to be somebody who can go out and live and hit those notes.
Yeah, and maybe he didn't like touring too, you know. That's maybe not something he experienced as much. That sounds like no joke, but yeah, I was hopeful. I was like, man, I can't wait for, like the another album after the gang's all here. Let's see what they can do, same singer. And then that news hit out of nowhere. I was like, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you guys had it this time.
Yeah, totally. Totally. But, they signed him to be their singer and they hadn't even met him.
Yeah.
The first time they met him, he flew to Vegas and they had a couple of rehearsal days before they started playing some shows with Scorpions. So, it's not like they got to hang out for a month, go out and do a bunch of shit together and go, okay, do we fit personality wise?
Yeah.
And that's a tough, he's a young guy. They're probably getting close to 60 or in their mid 50s or whatever. So
yeah, he won Swedish Idol. I mean, that was not long before that, singing 18 in Life or whatever. And that's cool and that's a good story, but yeah, you don't know if is this gonna pan out. And they already had a lot of those songs written and stuff like that, I think. And
Yep.
yeah.
Exactly.
Bummer.
Yep. Okay. We are on to our number ones. And Ryan, I'm dying to hear what your number one is.
Well, my number one is very similar to your number two, but before I get into it, which of the many Skid Row singers do you guys feel was the most out of place?
Probably, shit. ZP Thart maybe, or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, that's what I'd have gone with.
The guy from Dragon, I don't know. Who else was the guy? Was the guy from TNT was the singer for a while too, right?
That's my vote. I love Tony Harnell. I love him. But that combination, I was like, what? Like, he could probably pull it off, but that's so odd to me. So that's my vote. I thought,
even that I forgot he existed, that'd probably be my vote too.
Yeah. And then regarding singers replacing other singers, back in the day, it was rumored that Nikki wanted Sebastian to replace Vince in Motley. How do you guys feel that would have gone?
I would have loved to have seen it.
Yeah.
Sebastian never was a song. He wanted to be a songwriter. That was a big point of contention in Skid Row because Snake and Rachel wrote the songs and Sebastian was always like, well, hey, I contributed a little, I should get credit for writing the song too. And they'd be like, dude, you changed a word. You don't get songwriting credit for changing a word. Yeah. So I know that was a big point of contention. So, but if Sebastian could have swallowed his ego and said, look, Nikki writes the songs and I will go out and sing the shit out of them. I love the Motley Crue 94 album. I would have loved to have seen what they could have done with Sebastian. It probably would have been phenomenal, but who knows?
Yeah, I think I would have liked the music. I just don't know if it would have worked out long term. Yeah, they're all kind of crazy personalities, but Vince was happy being the pretty boy singer, and I don't know if that's all Sebastian wanted. And now he can do what he wants to do with a solo band. That feels like a good fit. It kind of sucks because some of those songs that could, like By Your Side, could have been hits, but with Skid Row. But that might be best.
I remember Sebastian sang on a project, this German songwriter. It was called Frame Shift, and he writes all the stuff. He had James LaBrie from Dream Theater sing on one of these albums, and he had Sebastian sing on one, and it turned into a big fucking shit show because Sebastian, this guy writes all the songs. Sebastian, when it was released, demanded like songwriting credit on like 7 out of the 10 songs when the guy actually gave him credit on 2 songs. Anyway, it was all on, this is way back in the day, probably early 2000s, but it was all in the news. And Sebastian was like, fuck, I contributed my emotional and my vocal power, blah, blah, blah. And the guy's like, but that's not writing a song. You know, you got to like contribute to the music, the melody, or the lyrics if you want
Yeah.
songwriting. And anyway, yeah, I think so. I would have loved to have seen a Motley album with Sebastian Bach, but eventually you would have seen the egos and the shit
Oh yeah.
happen with that
Totally.
band too.
Okay, sorry. Here's my actual number one. The Gang's All Here is awesome, and I'm a total denier of new shit. Like it's really hard for me to get into new bands and even existing bands with new singers. It's hard for me, I'll admit. Eric Grunwald though is a talent, and he seems like a very down to earth guy. Yeah, he had leukemia, battled back from that. Full appreciation for life. Great fit. I love the band Heat that he was in, which was also a new band, you know, newer more than what we're talking about generally. And I liked it a lot. So when he joined the band and I heard this album, I was really pleased and really fired up. So I'm bummed that he's gone because I thought they settled finally on a good one.
Yep.
And then they just released this live album, which has him on it, but he'd already been out of the band. So
Yeah.
he's out of the band, and they say, "Hey, here's our new live album with our singer who will never be with us again."
Yeah,
Yeah.
that exit just felt like they were unprepared for it, you know.
Totally.
That felt like out of nowhere. It just didn't feel like anyone was ready, which was why it, you know, could have been a fight, could have been touring, could have been whatever. I don't know, but it was something that was like, nope, I'm done, I'm out, and then they're like kind of scrambling.
Yep.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay, Mariah, what's your number one?
Yeah, my number one, you know, is I think that when I'm listening to Skid Row, and I'm sure everyone thinks that, but man, I'm so disappointed there isn't more albums like their first two. That's always gonna be a disappointment because, you know, I've listened to those so many times. I look at my Spotify. They're both the first two albums are in my top 15 all time streamed. I've listened to thousands of minutes, you know, with those albums. And I'm like, if there was a couple more, you know, like a bunch of other bands got to have, you know, that it's just what could have been kind of thing. It's just, you know, it's disappointing. It's sad.
It'd be interesting if if Slave, if a bunch of those songs had been legitimate hits, and that thing sells 5 million like the debut did. You know, I then I'd be interested to see which direction they would have gone, because I feel like they were like on Subhuman Race. Okay, we didn't have any hits. We just toured with Pantera. Fuck it, let's go that heavy. But if Slave had been a hit, maybe we would have gotten a more natural progression, something similar to that on the third album, and we didn't. And now we'll never know what could have happened. Because I'm with you, those first two, I wore out the debut on cassette, wore that fucking thing out. People used to be like, dude, can we listen to something else? Or they'd be like, well, can you just play I Remember You or Youth Gone Wild? I remember that happening. This girl going, can you just play like 18 in Life or I Remember You or Youth Gone Wild? I'm like, the whole fucking thing's good. No, we're listening to the whole thing. Okay.
Yeah, you know, my dad
Shut up.
had that one on cassette. He talks about wearing out that one and Dirty Rotten Filthy Stinking Rich the most. He's like, you know, if there were any albums that I just listened to all the time, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not actually physically wearing them out, but thousands of listens, I am, you know, to the songs. It's
Hell yes.
great songs.
Yeah, it's a bummer. It's a bummer. Okay. My number one, and I had to change some things because I think I ended up going into some topics that Subhuman Race and shit. So I'm gonna have a tie for number one. Number one. I think that Skid Row always tried to downplay, we're not a glam band. We're a heavy metal band. We don't fit in with that scene. But if you remember, you know, the Mark Weiss video where Sebastian is playing with what's his name, guitar player?
Zach Wild.
Zach Wild. And Sebastian has his hair teased up to here. Well, then Zach, hold on. I'll just get it. And if I need to edit this out.
It's just like the Welcome to the Jungle video. Same thing.
Mark Weiss put out this book. The Decade That Rocked. And it's all these pictures, and I probably won't be able to find the picture, but I will take a picture of it and I'll put it in the video. There's pictures of Skid Row before the debut album came out, and they were experimenting with their image, and it is full on fucking glam. Snake and Rachel with lipstick, poofed up hair. Baz's hair is out to here. It is so crazy because they, like I said, always tried to distance themselves. We don't fucking wear makeup and we don't worry about our hair, blah blah blah. So that's part of my number one. Here's my other part. There are a ton of old Skid Row demos floating around on YouTube. There's a song, I think it's Dirty Word. It's either Dirty Word or Dirty World. I fucking love that. And it's a rough demo. And I wish that Snake or Rachel or whoever has the power to do that, I wish they would, try to fix those up and put out a release of unreleased Skid Row demos. I would buy the shit out of that. There are some great songs on that. So those are my two number ones. It's a tie. Glam Skid Row and Skid Row demos.
Man, that's awesome that you say that about the demos. I hit up Johnny Gioli on Instagram. Yeah. And I was like, preaching what a fan I am, which I'm a huge fan. But I'm like, dude, your brunette material is so good. It's as good as Hardline. In fact, there is some Hardline on there. But the quality is horrendous. And I'm like, would you ever find it and remaster it or brush it up or even re-record it because he still got the chops or anything? And he was like, no, man, that's in my past. I only move forward. That's just stuff I don't even think about. And I'm like, I get that. And I know he's like a big time businessman. He's in Axl Rudy and all that shit. Point being, maybe the Skid Row guys are the same way. But if a band like Skid Row did that, they would probably fetch a decent financial gain versus Johnny Gioli doing it with brunette. I get that. Right. But guys like me, I'd be fucking all over it, dude.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, everybody wants a Skid Row reunion. Well, unreleased Skid Row Sebastian Bach songs is about as close as you're going to get. And I think a ton of people would be interested in that. So,
those three included for sure.
I'm going to point this out. If you see all the shit that I have framed in my house, and I have like a side business where I sell this shit online. And the very first thing that I ever framed and that kind of started this. So my son and we moved in here in 2018, and he's like, Dad, he goes, let's put cool stuff up on our walls. And I'm like, all right. So I framed some basketballs. He loves basketball, framed some basketball stuff for him. And I'm like, what am I going to put up? And I had a couple old magazines, and I was looking through, and I was like, holy shit. There's an old Skid Row ad for the debut album. And I'm like, I'm going to frame that. Well, lo and behold, now I have like hundreds and hundreds of framed things around my house. And it all started with this bad boy right here, which is hanging downstairs in like the entryway of my house. So
that's cool.
And I like on tour with Bon Jovi. Fuck, I wish I could have seen that tour. Shit.
Yeah.
Me too.
Man, so I was just looking at Facebook today, and they show a bunch of old concert ads, and it was Bon Jovi opening for Rat.
Oh yeah,
and it had a picture of them all backstage, and it was on the Invasion of Your Privacy tour in San Francisco. Yep. And they were all like wild, and like one of them's like got another one in a headlock and shit, and it's like, oh, to be backstage at the
right. Right.
Yeah, that's a tough part about being a fan now of these bands is, I hear about all these tours and I was like, damn it, I was born, or I was a kid. I didn't get that, I didn't get that chance. And the closest thing I ever will get is like, I went to the stadium tour, Motley Crue and Poison and Def Leppard, Joan Jett. I went to that. That was great, but it doesn't happen very often. That's the kind of thing you'd see in the 80s. And it's, that's a tough part about being a fan now. Is I don't get that.
I often feel the same way kind of in your boat, but I think I'm 43. I know you're younger than I am. And the cool part about my age is that the bands that we're talking about were really passe when I was in my early 20s. So I got to see them all in clubs versus arenas.
Yeah.
So like that's the silver lining for me, is that I got to meet Winger, Skid Row, Y&T, the list goes on, LA Guns, because they were playing 200 seat places, compared to like Guru, you saw these guys in 10,000 seat places, and you ain't gonna meet them back there,
Well, most of the concerts that I saw ended up happening in the mid 90s when it was, I saw some big shows.
Right.
But when I was, when I was getting to be 22, 23, and, a little bit more on my own, a little bit more capable of driving 3 hours to Minneapolis to go.
Yeah.
That was around 95. So I was seeing Warrant and all these bands in like 500 seat venues.
Yeah.
And that was, it was kick ass. You felt bad for the band, but it was awesome to be able to be that close.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, then you start to kind of feel bad because then you kind of see them in more of a human view, and you're like, shit, they're getting in that fucking 1978 RV right there all together, going on to the next city to play their, basically their rehearsal room, like talking.
Right. So with that brings us to the end of 10 things we think about Skid Row. I would love to know your thoughts in the comments. Hey, tell us about this band. What are your thoughts? Where did things go wrong? Where did things go right? And Ryan, thank you for being back on to do episode number 5 of 10 Things I Think.
Well, thank you. It was an honor. Anytime.
Awesome. And hopefully you don't have to go to any crazy fires tonight. Mariah.
No, the ocean is very angry right now.
There you go.
I don't know if you've seen any of the news where we are, but there's like 20-foot plus waves.
Oh shit!
It destroyed our wharf, which has been not the whole thing, but about 50 feet of it got swallowed into the ocean with a couple tractors and an entire building that are washing onto the shore. So it has not been a fun. It's good for surfers, but not for the rest of us.
Yeah, Mariah, and I give Mariah shit sometimes because she's the only girl that comes on here, and yes, she's kind of a hottie, so I joke about people liking her because of that, but she knows hair metal and knows more than a lot of older people that are involved with this stuff, so it's awesome to have her on the channel. Mariah, thank you for being on.
Yeah, no, thanks. I appreciate this. This is so much fun. This is like my highlights lately, so I appreciate it. I love it. Thanks.
Absolutely, and you're welcome on anytime. Hey, thank you for sticking around and making it to the end of this video. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe. What the hell? Ring the bell if you want notifications. Special shout out to my members who contribute to the channel. They are the people who make the guru go, and I appreciate their support so much. And hey, if you just spend a little bit of time watching anything that I do, I truly appreciate it. Until the next video comes out, my name is Anthony. They call me the Guru. Take care.